Entrepreneurship, on this edition of Entrepreneurs Without Border. I am with the usual guest, Fundi Kia Kipara, and we're talking about mindset, identity, and culture. Fundi, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you, Clyde. How are you?
I am well, man. I am well. It's a little cold in Melbourne where I am, but other than that, everything is fine. How about Sydney? What's the weather like in Sydney?
Sydney is beautiful, man. We always get sun. It doesn't matter what temperature we have, but we always have sun, and that is the blessing we have, which
Well,
a lot of other places.
I suppose you're trying to tell me Sydney is better than Melbourne, but we'll come back on this next time. Let's get into the topic for today. We're talking about identity and culture as they relate to mindset. Again, for those just watching this specific video, we have been talking. It's a series of conversations around mindset and also the link between mindset and entrepreneurship, because this is about entrepreneurship. The way you perform as an entrepreneur depends largely on what sort of mindset, what's up there in between your ears. And we need to look at all the elements that go into that. So identity and culture have a great role to play in mindset. Fundi, what do you think about that?
I believe that is true, and it's very important that we make that link very clear to be understood. That identity, most of us, comes from culture. Our culture is, as a biological machines, we are programmable, and we are programmed by our culture.
Absolutely, we are programmable and programmed by our culture. In our mindset, the mindset is about how we think and how we feel, and how that is sort of repeating some sort of pattern in our life, and that really is a core part of our identity, isn't it, Fundi?
Absolutely, absolutely. The way we feel and the way we think, thinking is more intellect, and feeling is more internal in our intuition. So how we feel inside us matters a lot, because that's what we exude outside to the external world.
Yeah, and I was having a conversation with a friend lately, and she has been studying. She's in sort of the decolonization of the mind type of thing, and she was trying to explain. I mean, she said things that quite deep that maybe I sort of thought about it previously, but not as deep as the way she put it. To understand how our behaviors, our thinking, our feelings have deep roots, and many of which we don't really understand. And a lot of them could come as far back as, the colonization and slavery, with all those trauma and everything. And many of us are not necessarily aware of these things.
Unfortunately, yes, trauma is involved in this, and it's generational, and it's been passed on, and has been never addressed properly. As a result, we have developed these identities and character and behaviors, which I term them as triple A. So triple A, as in, uh, mostly we express ourselves in anger, anxiety, and aggression. So, and this is all linked towards what we've just finished talking about, the identity.
Okay. Now, culture. We just spoke about identity, culture. That's kind of the tapestry on which identity is built, isn't it?
Absolutely, because culture is builds normalization, builds daily behaviors, and just cultural cues, which can be negative or positive, or can be in the middle.
That's right. And we know things such as traditions, the environment in which we live, and the behaviors that we see around us. They condition us, and they affect significantly our identity and our behaviors, don't they?
Absolutely, I agree with you, and that's why it's very important to identify these links, and then being able to address them to as a solution, to find a solution to turn around our negative psychology into a more positive psychology.
Yeah, so talking about negative and positive psychology, this is where we're sort of trying to get into the nitty gritty of how obviously we can fix what has gone wrong or we can improve what is working well in our identity, in our culture, personal culture or collective culture, and how this can sort of affect performance in entrepreneurship or many other settings, whether it's professional or business or any other type of settings where we are expected to deliver some sort of outcome based on what we do, how we think, and how we feel. So there are these sort of two major things that sort of underpins our behavior: love and fear. And you talked about aggression, anxiety, and anger. That's kind of on the negative side. But before we go into the negative side, let's start from the positive side. What are some of these things that affect our behaviors positively, which we need to reinforce and strengthen before we go into the negative ones that we need to address?
Well, positive is attached to operating in the paradigm of love, and love is power, and that gives you that victim mentality and not victim mentality, and
Mhm.
that's the opposite. That's and also to be on the optimistic all the time, and your starting point is always positive, and not thinking pessimistically for everything we start with is to be negative.
Yeah, so that suppose the sense of internal harmony that we have, peace and joy and pleasure. Because I think some of the things that really determine our behaviors. All of us at any point we're trying to avoid pain and get pleasure in what we are doing. So if you haven't had any sort of traumatic experience, it probably means that you have internal harmony, which has then provided you an amount of joy and peace that is enabling you to function properly, and that can happen a lot of times. But it looks like most of us are suffering from traumas that we may not even be aware of, but which is actually significantly affecting our behavior. So let's talk on that negative psychology now and how that affects our mindset and can also affect our performance in entrepreneurship.
Yes, absolutely. The environment, when if you are operating in the paradigm of fear, which is pain, which gives you that pessimism and victim mentality, and feeling a not good enough person all the time, because you don't have that internal peace and harmony, and you don't feel dignified, and therefore life is questionable, and you're not happy with everything which happens around you, and that's why you have the triple A feeling of being angry all the time, and you're anxious all the time, and you're aggressive all the time.
Mm, mm. Yeah, and I suppose there's a lot of that in our communities. Is there?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And this is from my observation, and I've also a little bit of reading, and you will see if anyone who has their trust violated, and they have bad experiences in their lives, they are very easily triggered with a lot of things. Some of them they don't even know how to account for. I think you're offline. I've lost your audio. You're offline. I've lost your audio.
Can you hear me?
I can hear now.
Okay, I'm not sure what happened there with my audio. I'll just check. Yeah, everything should be fine, but I see where the problem is. All right. At least it's not the best audio, but at least we have some audio happening.
Yeah.
You can hear me, okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. So I was saying that I was having a chat with my wife the other day. She was telling me about an experience she had at work where um, one of her colleagues was pretty much trying to trigger her anger as a way to get her to be on the wrong side of things. So because she knew that she was actually right in what she was doing, but this person was trying to manipulate her, thinking that she would react angrily, and therefore she would be in a position where she would have to justify her anger. And we see a lot of that in our dealings, and many of us may actually connect to that, where they say Africans are quite emotional, and some people trying to play on that so that we display more aggressiveness, and that eventually leads us into more trouble, even though initially we were actually on the right side of things.
Yes, and this is very evident. It happens all the time in our dealings with ourselves or with other people, in collective or individualistic positions. So, and it is because it's an underlying thing which is brewing inside you, and it's very easy to be triggered. It's very easy, because you don't. I mean, we are not designed to survive for too long, yeah, and we are always surviving and not thriving. So um, this patience becomes so flimsy that if anything goes wrong, you're starting to worry about things will go bad and worse.
Mm, mm. Yeah. So and many of us, sort of don't really take the time to dig deep inside of us to deal with the sort of things that sort of trigger our emotions, especially on the negative side, because this actually affects us a lot in our performance in a variety of settings. It's important that we get to have these conversations with someone like yourself and others who can help us to really understand the deep reasons why we may be able to display more emotional on the negative side, and then be able to avoid that, so we can leverage on the positive emotions to be able to drive us, and get us into higher places where we want to be. So you were talking to me earlier about the not good enough sort of feeling. Explain to us what that means a little bit more on that.
Okay, so when we are balanced and we are operating in the love and power and having that positive mentality and optimism, yeah, we tend to feel good about ourselves. So when we say not good enough, it's a feeling inside you that it doesn't matter what capabilities you have developed, if it's skills, it's knowledge, it's whatever you have as a competitor in the environment of socioeconomic or whatever, you you will still have that doubt inside you. Always have that doubt inside you when you are operating, and that is the not good enough feeling. I call it NGE. It's a not good enough. You're feeling like that to a point that you think it's normal to feel like that. But that can be turned around. The not good enough can be turned around from not good enough NGE into a need for growth is excellence, and that's when we go into positive. We want to exude energies of excellence, and that's what we call triple E.
Okay. And how do you actually make that shift? It may be easier said than done, but because it has to do with emotion, these emotions are usually ingrained in us, and it's not easy to make that shift. What should we do, or what should people do to actually, when they realize what is happening, to be able to shift?
So to address that in my own practice is to go through a therapeutic process. Could be hypnosis, could be a neuro-linguistic programming, could be a psychological counseling, could be a lot of other approaches to address the past traumas as a healing process. And once you recognize and bring awareness, so you don't live in hope, you live in awareness. Includes the knowledge of who you are yourself and being able to connect with yourself. And I always joke about people, I tell people, you don't even have a password to log into yourself. So you need to learn to log into yourself, to know who you are. And when you log into yourself, you put positivity and you put a positive spin in everything you do, and you bring passion to it.
I suppose the issue is where do you get the password to log into yourself?
That's what the therapy goes on. So you have to go through therapy to find your password, which you lost, because we are all born with all this capability to navigate this world, but they get disabled. So we need to go back and turn them on, and by resetting and relogging and restarting your system.
All right, so you need to find your password to log into yourself and do these things that you need to do to try to fix what has gone wrong. And it's not an easy process. You probably need some assistance because someone has to actually project the you in front of you so that we can have a look at it and see how that you can be fixed. And when we're talking about mindset and entrepreneurship, obviously we're trying to help people to uh, I suppose, perform well when it comes, because it's one thing to embrace entrepreneurship, it's another to be successful into it. And in order to be successful, you have to see how you are operating as a person. What's sort of the program that you are using in your entrepreneurship activity to be able to exert the best sort of influence that you can get out of you to be able to achieve the outcome that the objective you've set for yourself. Now, and we want to go to that positive mindset, positive behaviors, and you talked about the triple E. Tell us a little bit more about that and how that can really help us to understand that shift that we need to go from the negative to the positive side of our behaviors and achieve best results.
Yeah, so when you calibrate, when you log into yourself, you calibrate your internal identity and character, and you have this energy. That energy is exuded wherever you go because it's all internalized. So you don't have to remember or trying to memorize anything. It's all internalized, and it becomes part of you. You're operating in that environment where now you're positive, and this gives you internal peace, harmony, and feeling dignified. And then you go to the next step, which is having that authenticity now. Now you're authentic, your belief is right, and you have courage to step into the world after you've worked on yourself. So
Mm.
and that's what and that you're operating now on triple E, not A, because A, people can notice that. People can notice you're always angry, you're always
Mm-hmm.
triggered, you're always anxious, you're always aggressive in everything, in all your approach. Physically, physiologically, you're always looking like you're looking for trouble, or you're looking for, if anybody is going to try and cause trouble, you will jump and snap to these people. So those are the things, uh, to balance your character, to balance your identity, to know who you are is very important, very very important. And to finish up with that is, then you're setting your mindset. You've got your belief right. Now even how to access any type of affluence we're talking about.
And all that, I suppose, should lead us to a paradigm shift where we're no longer operating out of a survival mode, but we operate
Into On the thriving
into
mode.
a thriving mode. Perhaps you can unpack that a little bit more.
Yeah. So when you are on a negative psychology, most of the time it keeps you grinding around survival. You are surviving all the time. Everything you do is not enough, and that's not what we're designed for. See, us as biological machines, we can survive. Surviving is part of it, but it should be a very short term. It's not a long term thing. If you put, it's like somebody drops into the water or something gone wrong, a capsized boat, and somebody has to stay in the water for too long trying to swim. After a while, they're going to give up and they're going to take water in. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so that survival position period should be very short, and mostly we are built to thrive. We want to be in an environment where everything is sustainable and our behavior um, gives them the same flow. And survival is everything. You get your vitality, you got your longevity. You know you. you feel good about yourself, and that is part of the triple E, exuding energies of excellence.
Okay, triple E. Remember, we talked about triple A, triple E. You need to shift from triple A, which is anxiety, anger, and aggression, into triple E, exuding energies of excellence. Our transformational coach likes to play with these, these letters and these these notions. But we learn a lot. We learn a lot from Fundi with the way he packages this concept together, and that helps us all to better understand how our minds are affected in various ways, and how we can then change things, especially when we want to become entrepreneurial to achieve particular objectives we have, whether it's for business or for social entrepreneurship. That is all we got time for. Now, Fundi, maybe, if you have a last word before we go, I'm sure you can find a few other words from where everything came from.
So if you're operating on survival, okay, you're going to invest in mediocrity. So you need to invest in excellence to get excellence. But if you invest on mediocrity, don't expect to get excellence. And excellence is about thriving.
All right. That is all we have time for. Thank you very much, Fundi, again, for this wonderful conversation. We will continue to have this series of conversation around mindset, entrepreneurship, performance. And we ask you to like the video, comment, share the video. And if you also have something that you would like to be able to contribute to this series of broadcasts, feel free to contact us. We'll be more than happy to have a look and see how you can be brought into the conversation. Until next time, stay connected and be excellent in everything you do. Thank you very much.